Hi everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. Today we're going to be talking about the Fanvil PA3 SIP paging gateway. Now you might be aware or unaware of the PA3, but you would not have seen this particular firmware set on the unit. This is a Generation 2 firmware release. So the PA3 was originally an audio transmission device, etc., for interfacing to PAs, etc. The Generation 2 software takes it to the next step, and although it has all the original functionality and features it has now got a whole lot more, and this is what I'll be running through with you today. Okay, presentation. Basically, we're going to try and get through this as fast as we can, so it's going to be a quick product overview, highlight on features, some application scenarios and comparisons. Okay, the PA3 is part of the whole Fanvil suite. The Fanvil suite can be bolted together in various different configurations and solutions through multicasting, etc. And in the case of the PA3, it'll be using the multicasting to broadcast either a bell set or an announcement set or multicasting manual paging through devices. And of course, you can have all the endpoints of Fanvil range to receive the multicast pages, e.g. the X and XU series phones, the I series intercoms, etc., and of course the internal phones for apartments, etc. And also, just for those of you who are into the hospitality side of it, we can do emergency exits, etc. Letting the cat out of the bag here a bit, but in a hotel environment, so you can do evacuations, etc. And all of the devices can be controlled by the FDPS, FDMS, etc. So moving on, let's give the product overview. So the PA3 is pretty much as you remember. It can be applied to any particular installation that you wish to do. If you want to use it for public broadcasting, it has all the functionality and features there. One of the key differences is that it has HD audio, so it's got the codecs of G722 and the other one is Opus. It can be achieved real-time paging or fixed-time MP3 broadcasting. It's also got some one-touch intercom functionality, and also you can trigger various other functions such as lockdown alarms and evacuation alarms, etc., etc. Applications, you can use it pretty much anywhere, campus, shopping malls, railway stations, building sites, etc., but we'll be going into them a little bit later. One of the new additions to the PA3 is basically a PA server and timed announcements. Okay, so let's just kick off over the PA server first. We can have up to 2 SIP registrations connected to the PA3. It pretty much can behave like a telephone, except for when we activate the PA server, what we can do is have a call-based ID. So if a call comes in with its CID, its call line identification, we can, for security reasons, only have the PA3 answer that particular caller line ID on that line. And when it does answer, we can either play a recording of either just a straight tone, if you wish, or a voice announcement, indicating that they have been answered and to instructions about entering a PIN. Totally optional. But then you dial a PIN number, and in my testing, I've been doing 4-digit ones, like really hard, complicated passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4. And what that does, as soon as the system gets or the PA3 gets a acknowledged PIN number, it will then put you across the multicast paging group that you have told that particular PIN number is associated with. Okay, so you've got up to 8 paging groups that the PA3 can manage through, and you can have different caller line ID, and it's just different PIN numbers to access different multicast groups. So applications on that we'll be talking about a little bit later, but fundamentally just imagine in the past, if you've had a cloud system, etc., or a remote site, and you haven't been able to use multicast across the sites, you can now access the remote site via a SIP registration, and then it'll kick into the multicast mode at the other end and play it through either the amplifier interface, if you've got the old analog bullhorn speakers or analog speakers there, the 100-volt stuff, or it'll actually multicast across the multicast group that you specify, or a combination of both, if you so wish. Okay, the other new feature, which you wouldn't have happened to seen before, it did have a sort of a beginnings of one, but we've been working with Fanvil over the last 6 months to get this all sorted out, is the PA3 scheduled system. So what it now has a complete scheduled solution in there, so you can have it like a 24-hour setup, you can have a 7-day-a-week setup, you can have a monthly setup, etc., etc. So what we can do is, for example, the obvious thing to use it for is in a school with a bell cycle. So if you want a bell to go off at 8:30, you have your WAV file in there of a bell, and you at 8:30 you trigger, I'm going to ring this bell. If you want another one at 8:35, you put it at 8:35. If you want another one through for lunch times, etc., you just build your entire schedule. Now it can be, you can have different bell WAV files, etc., doing different things. It's again totally up to you and how you run it. And as I said, the simplest way is the school, but we'll be talking about more of this later in some of the solutions further down the track. We've got our new feature, this is absolutely new as well, which is the Fanvil lockdown and evacuation functionality. Now, as we know, the PA2 can have two push buttons on it. Before we used to use them to ring things, of which we still can, so haven't lost any functionality there. But now we can actually also link them to audio files, okay? And those audio files can play a lockdown message or an evacuation message, or whatever you need depending on the customer's situation. Now they're pretty easy to use. You connect them all up and program them, very simple programming, and then to activate the alarm you press the button once and off it goes. It starts playing the message and it'll continue to repeat it. Okay. Again, we'll go into more detail about that shortly, but if you want to stop it, you press it again and it stops. And then if you want a second announcement, you can put it on the button number 2. Okay, so we're talking about that a little bit more, but actually really exciting addition to the little unit. So we'll carry on. Okay, so let's just get some of the technical stuff out of the way. We're not going to go too much in depth here, but fundamentally this is a Linux system. It's a tiny little box. Basically, it fit in your hand. So it can be mounted anywhere, hidden away inside of any device you want it to do, or any cupboard, or even just put on the wall. Okay, the RAM on board is 128 meg ROM and 64 megabyte RAM. Okay, status indicators. We've got a blue LED in the light, and we've also got some LED lights we can change the signaling on them for different states and statuses that the system's in. It's an HD audio, so we support the wideband code of G722 and Opus. I think I mentioned that before. Speed key dial, so naturally you can ring extensions, speed numbers, etc. on it, and they're 2 programmable keys, but they also can now be used for evacuations. A network is a 100 meg port. It is PoE powered. Okay. So then we've got SIP lines of 2, we've got a speaker interface for just a standard speaker, that is, I've got one of them, we've got a mic so we can connect a microphone onto it, various other solutions we can use that for, got an audio output interface for connecting to paging equipment, even the older series, a 100 volt, you just put through the mic. Then you've got an audio input interface. You can put music on hold on that, etc. It supports a TF card. Now this is like the TF mini cards, SD cards, I suppose you could also call them. It's 32 gig that this particular one will do, so you've got a lot of recording there. And just in case you were worried that you didn't have enough, or you wanted a little bit more transportable, as in you can regularly swap the recordings, so the customer has a number of different scenarios or different voice scenarios labeled similar, so that they play for, say, a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever. You can have 5, doesn't matter. So you've got a USB, and that just simply plugs in. Again, I think that's up to 32 gig. It could be more, but between the 32 gigs, a fair amount of voice recording, voice messages. Okay, so it's PoE enabled, just standard PoE, and it plugs in and powers. It has got an external power input for more power, which you could use for driving a passive speaker. Installation, desktop wall mounted. Just heading through here, nearly finished. So looking at, say, the back end of it, you've got your key speakers here, and you've got LED outputs here. So these LEDs can be programmed to give you a status indication if that's what you want, on whether it's active or not working or whatever it needs flashing in certain situations. Then you've got your key inputs. Now they're just dry contacts basically. So for example, I could have this key here, that could be an emergency evacuation, this one could be a lockdown, or I wanted to dial this extension number or dial that extension number, or I wanted to dial this speed dial number or that speed dial number. So it's just various options, etc. You've got a reset key there, that can be handy. You've got your little SD card here that fits in that slot right there. Okay, and it gives you the indication on which way to do it. We're looking on the other side. We've got our audio our audio input here. So that's where we could put a music on hold source, etc. You know, you could use a music on hold. You could use a mobile phone, your microphone as an input, DVD, FM broadcast, e.g. radio. This is a 10 to 30 watt output here. Now it's 10 watt if you're just using the PoE. If you want to go any higher than that, you can go or you just want to run you don't have a PoE, you can just drive it with a 12 volt output. Now off the memory it goes to 24 volts, and that'll actually drive a 30 watt speaker, but we probably need to check that. The other output line out here is you would use this for your line output to your audio line, your active speakers. Okay, so these are self-powered, and they could go 30, 40, 100, 120 watts because they'll have their own power, and this will simply just be a line output for you to use. You could also put a PA speaker across this as well if you so wish. You've got your volume up and your volume down, so you control the volumes of things. Also, when you first plug it in, you can press and hold down the volume up key, and that'll give you an IP address. Just a little trick I use is that I get an internal phone of an old faulty phone. Remember the old Ringer hands-free phone? I just basically glue it or stick it on double-side tape on the top of it, and put on the speaker out. So if I want the IP address, I just press the up button, away it goes. So there's our network PoE port. We've got our power input, if we so wish, which is DC 2 amp, 12 to 24 volts, and there's our USB. Okay, running over the the benefits of it. It's small, it's stylish. Yes, it is. It's small, and it actually is well built. It's got that quality feel about it. It's because it's small, it can bolt anywhere. You could put this in a car. You could put this in a mobile command post. If for a fire truck or an ambulance, there's a certain number of them running around the country. And being 12 volts, you can run it off the 12 volt power source if you so wish. We've got it can be mounted on the desktop or wall, so it's got the screws on the little feet for that. And you can pretty much use it in any situation, of which we'll be running through more of, e.g. campuses, shopping malls, railway stations and buildings. So the next thing is basically what can you use it for in regards to your input and output interfacing. It pretty much will let you apply it to whatever you want. And I can't just say, well, it's for this and that's all you use it for. This is really getting to be like a Swiss knife type scenario. It's just got so many applications and so many little tools on it that you can use and link it into your sale. The product is not expensive by any stretch of the imagination. And so really, once you start having a look at this and have a play with it and get used to it, and I'll run through again some of these applications, you'll begin to see that, yes, you're going to sell a phone system. Yes, you're going to sell an intercom system. Yes, you could be selling a PA system. Whatever you're putting in there, this is a sort of add-on device that is just going to turn it from, oh, it's a phone system, to it's a full solution. In a school, naturally, it'll turn it into a bell system and an emergency evacuation by simply adding one box. You can drive the alarms and bell systems through a standard Fanvil phone in the classroom. In a hotel, we could have it as an evacuation. So it's really start thinking about how you can build the system up as we start heading through some of the presentations. So highlighted features. It can be used on a cloud service. This is probably one of the big advantages because of the PA server on it. We can ring the unit, have PIN numbers, and on a remote site that we couldn't normally get paging across to now, we can have paging on that site for minimal investment. Okay, it's smallish, stylish. We've talked about that. It's got clear voice with all the codecs and MP3. It's easy to expand. I mean, if I've got a building site that's got 4 buildings with 4 PA amplifiers that are driving all the analog 100 volt speakers, I just put one of these PA3s in front of it, and I'm connected up to the unit. It'll receive the multicast across the fiber network between the buildings, and then just plug straight into the amplifier, and away you go. So you don't have to replace all the old amplifiers. You can put a PA3 in there, and then over time put new IP speakers in. It's easy to deploy. You'll see that if you want. There'll be a technical presentation coming out on this in a week or two, and it's no more difficult than just your standard IP phone. So don't think that, oh my gosh, this is going to be too hard to do. You know, I don't need this. I haven't got the time for that. It's actually really, really simple. Okay, so, and I'll run through that in another presentation. And it's easy to maintain. It doesn't have any moving parts in it. It doesn't have any whirly bits of fans swinging around. It doesn't have anything like Microsoft on it. So you plug it in and it goes, and it just keeps going. So this slide basically just wanted to point out that all of the Fanvil equipment, including the PA3, is based on the SIP standard communication protocol. It can be deployed on a LAN and a WAN scenario, and it'll work with any product that you have got, or if you are unsure, give us a call. There'll be contact details at the end of the presentation, and talk to us about it, and we can work through the recommendation. So it doesn't matter what you're selling, really. If it's building intercoms for apartments, or phone systems for businesses, or you're in a hotel, or you're in a industrial campus, or whatever, anything like that, give us a call, because it doesn't matter if you're what brand of product you're selling. We can enhance it for you. So and we can work through with you on that. Okay, so HD audio, we've talked about that again, but really this is a key difference between other interfaces that are out there versus a PA3 from Fanvil. Yes, you can run your G711, but it's also got G722 and Opus, as well as we're using the MP3. Now, just remember one little point. If you are going to go for broadcast music, it isn't the PA3 that's going to make the difference. It's going to be the speaker that makes the difference. So if you're going to do broadcast music and you want really nice music out there, generally we go for things like an active speaker. E.g., it's got its own power source. It receives the input from the device, and it then plays through. Or it might be another amplifier with music speakers on it. Okay, a bullhorn, for example, is not going to play a voice over IP bullhorn, or any bullhorn, to be honest with you, isn't going to play great, deep, resounding music. It's going to sound like it's running through a bullhorn. So just be aware of that. You're going to be broadcasting real-time information, so you get a combination of this. You can do your real-time paging through the PA3, or the PA3 can manage the multicasting through to analog devices from a IPPBX multicast or a Fanvil press one button type for a zone multicast scenario. And of course you've got emergency broadcasting, and because of emergency broadcasting, sometimes you have to evacuate the place. So if you punch the start button, it's going to basically keep going while you evacuate out of the building. You can set up all your voices, etc., on the memory cards. As we said, we have got a huge amount of memory. We can set it up into multi USB cards, so if you want different recording, etc., you use a common file name structure, and you can swap the USBs around to play different sets of recording. If you, for example, you could have a 5-day-a-week recording, put that USB in. It's got the same file structure and name structure. The unit will just look at that and start immediately playing as to be worked out on. Okay. Also going to have function of local audio and video recording as a new feature, but that's not on this version yet. So we do support HD video linkage and real-time monitoring. So basically, is a camera that the PA3 is compatible with. You can stream it through the PA3 if it sets off a notification or a call. So if there's a video phone at the other end or a video monitoring center, they can answer the call, get the video, and get the voice, etc. Okay, cloud platform. We'll be sending out a presentation about this again shortly. This is probably one of the most undersung, but it offers great value. Basically, it's an automatic deployment and monitoring system for phones. Okay, you don't have to, you can use a phone system that is out there to automatically deploy. Most IP PBXs out there can deploy their own phones, etc. But there are times, like on a cloud scenario, that you want to have access to them all the time. So just so you know that every time you turn on a Fanvil device, it runs off to mum. Mum is basically its redirection server. Okay, and if there's no entry, e.g. you haven't entered that this MAC address belongs to me and I want it sent here, it will just start up locally. If it's been pointed at a provisioning server, it'll rush off to there. The other way is that if you set up your MAC addresses here, so every reseller gets a can get their own login to this unit, the provisioning server, etc., the FDMS, and they can basically, every time the phone starts up, it'll run through to here, and on this you can set up the registration IPs, etc., the passwords, what's going to go on, what key layouts you're going to have, backups, all that kind of thing, and you can actually then remotely control the phone changes from this devices here. If you want any more information on this, let us know, but there will be a full presentation coming on out on this shortly again. Okay, so now let's talk application scenarios. So basically we've got PA3 for public broadcasting, pretty much straightforward. We've always used it before. We can have phones or PABXs, etc., music on hold, and then we can use the audio streaming multicast to the area that you've got a amplifier to be plugged into, so constant voltage amplifier here, and the PA3 has the output, audio output, and that plugs into the amplifier, and that can drive all the passive speakers, etc., generally 100 volts. Okay, so this is actually quite important. It's quite a common thing out there to have that you've replaced your customer's phone system or intercom system, etc., and they've got a paging system, but they can't interface it to the new IP equipment. This is what the PA does. This is its breakfast. This is basically this is what it has every day. So there's a lot of them out there at the moment, and they're just simply plugged into the PA amplifier, and the PABX phones and or IPPX are broadcasting to it. Now just bear in mind, if you had a cloud and you wanted to broadcast to another site, you'd be doing the same thing, or you could actually use the phone numbers to ring in and passwords. So that's the server side of it, of which we are sort of indicating here. We've got public broadcasting. There's a SIP call to the PA3 and line 1 and line 2, and we can tell that line just to multicast to 1 and multicast to 2. So we can do 2 zones. So that'll be an output from multicast and or amp scenario. You just simply ring the phone numbers and automatically broadcast. A variation of this is using the server, and that's where we can actually have up to 8 zones, I believe it is, with PIN numbers and CLI. So we can ring in. We can have up to 2 numbers. Dial the password or PIN number, and the PIN number will associate with the group that you want it to go through, and then it will set it to that multicast group. That way you have zoned paging on a remote site, if you so wish it. This is handy for when you've got head offices or shops, retail shops, Big Harvey Normans, all those guys, or even furniture shops have come across, where you go in there, you buy a piece of furniture and they say, do you want it delivered, or you can go and pick it up, and the warehouse is about half a kilometre or a kilometre down the road. Okay, so that's the sort of thing they could ring up and just broadcast down there, on whatever you want. At the same time, while it's receiving broadcasts, you could set up the time scheduler and let them run their time clock for morning teas, lunchtime, that kind of thing. And of course also emergency evacuation, etc., if you so wish, since you've got a PA system in there, and you could add value to it by simply adding this one little device. We can do broadcasting between 2 sites where a call out can go into multicasting and a call in can go to multicasting, so you can split the sites up that way. And, whoops, go back up, sorry. Okay, this is broadcasting under a time plan. So essentially we've got audio streaming heading towards here. We've got we can page from pressing the buttons on any BLF on a Fanvil, put the zone buttons down there. We can do broadcasting of music down there if we so wish, or we've got an on-premise PABX is going to access it through. Now, this is timed. So essentially there's a whole time schedule sitting in the PA3. It can be connected via the audio output to a speaker and or a multicast at the same time. So it can do multicast only, it can do audio output only, or it can do both at the same time. Okay, and under a time schedule, it's going to start broadcasting out. Now, the best way I could explain it is this is actually what it looks like. This is a PA3. Okay, and as you can see, it looks very similar to a Fanvil phone, except for under intercom, it's got time plan. Now, we could we basically can set a time up by naming it, as in Health and Safety 5. If we're going to do a timed play audio, we're going to look at the U disc. So this is the actual USB disc, and then there's the onboard disc. I think it's the S disc. And then you've got WAV files. You do this drop-down box, and you can select the WAV file. Now, if you want to know what it sounds like, press Audition, and it'll start playing it through the speaker. On the if you connect it to an external speaker, it'll start playing to it. If you connect it to the PA to the speakers, it's going to broadcast that as well. So you can stop that by pressing the stop button. You want to play it once or in a loop, and then we're going to say we want to play it weekly, but we've got daily, weekly, or monthly. So I'm just gone during the day, Monday to Friday, and this is going to be the start time, finish time. So 11:30 to 11:31. Okay, and it's done. Then I go add, and there's all your times down here and what it does. The underneath this, which if I scroll down, there's actually a stop time, so I can schedule as well. So I could set it up to stop. Say, for example, if it's a school setup, we could use it for during the term breaks. We need to set the term breaks up, and it'll just simply stop broadcasting. Now, just start thinking a little bit about your health and safety side here particularly. Yes, originally this sort of thing was great for schools, and it still is. There's a lot of schools out there that don't have it. There's still universities, they don't have them yet. There's the private schools, there's all sorts of schools out there. But how about the businesses? So let's think of a something like a truck loading firm. You've got trucks coming in and out, you've got a big car park, forklifts working, blah, 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 blah. Health and safety, every, say, 15 minutes is broadcasting a message. Like the one message, which is quite relevant, could be when walking onto the truck parking and unloading area, please be aware that the forklift drivers don't always see you. Before you cross in front or behind, please stop and wait and make eye contact and let them indicate that you may go behind them or in front of them. Okay, that's a terrible announcement I just made, but never mind. It's just an example, because when it boils down to it, when a company gets hammered by an investigation or somebody gets hurt, perish the thought, they're going to get OSH in there, and the company has to show that they've taken adequate health and safety. Okay. Now the thing is, define the word adequate. Okay. The company's never going to win, and really when you're doing some of these things, all you're going to be negotiating is the size of your fine. Okay, so if you've got like some audio announcements that are broadcasting out there saying the do's and don'ts of health and safety, even in a supermarket, you've got the broadcasting systems out there, and you could have music playing and then the scheduler kicking in with messages. And again, if you want to change the messages, you simply can set them up so that you've got alternate sets of messages that you can plug into the PA3. Okay, so it's pretty wide range of things you can do, and when you're selling, as I said, whether you're selling a broadcast system, a phone system, a intercom, a apartment building, why wouldn't you put something like this in there? Because it's IP, it's just one little box, and it does so much, and you can just bend it all in there. And really, the price to you guys is quite cost effective, I assure you. You can up it up and add it to your solution and get a lot more revenue and more margin for yourselves as well. I won't keep that a secret. Okay, so have a think about that. Also, by the way, this broadcasting unit, and by the way, paging, doesn't need a phone system to make it work. All it needs is a PoE switch, and you can multicast across the PoE switch. It can be a standalone unit with speakers and a phone if you want to page from, 210i with a mic boom, and all the time messaging will just broadcast across the PA3 with a PoE and some speakers. Doesn't need a switch, doesn't need anything like that. You can just set them up with fixed IP addresses, and then you're just pointing things at multicast groups, and away you go. Your emergency announcements. Okay, again, what would you use these for? Well, over here, tsunami alert. If you're on an island-based hotel type scenario, or a low line, or you're on the seafront and there's a tsunami warning, you could have one as a tsunami warning. There's been a number of incidences over the years with in the hospitality market where a tsunami has come through and done some serious damage and basically hurt, killed a few guests. It's a terrible thing. But by simply pressing one of the buttons, we could have it broadcasting through every hotel voice over IP phone. And the H5 and the H2U Fanvil phones are great hotel phones. They work well, they'll do all the multicasting and avoid all the issues of guests playing with buttons. We can have an evacuation alarm, again handy for a a business of any size. Press the button and of course away it goes. We can have school lockdown alarms. We can have tropical storm warnings. We can have you can have a business lockdown, because when it boils down to it, you've seen some, well, we've all seen some crazy things. You've got a riot going out in the streets or someone with a gun. You don't want your staff charging out and getting themselves hurt. So basically, again, let the imagination go. It's a simple matter of you've already got phones, or you could put speakers on, IP speakers. There's a unit, there's a button. That's it, you're off, you're ready to go. A little bit of programming and some voice messages and you're done. So where can we do this? Where can we put this? We can put this anywhere. There's just, in my opinion, there is no limitation of where you want. If you wanted to put it in your own car and have some speakers playing out of it, you could. And don't knock the idea. South Auckland kids around and everyone in cars down here, they've got speakers in their car and they squawk away. But in all seriousness, we're talking about fire engines, ambulances, police cars, anything that needs a bit of crowd control, some notices, or something like that. You think about it. You can bend it around and make it go. You can do it on indoors, escalators, and offices. E.g., an escalator. People going up and down escalators. It's just mind your step. Don't fall off. That type of thing. Offices, again, you can use them even in health and safety. Make sure you get up, do this, do that. You can provide multi-cast from hosted PABX environments or remote areas if you need to. Provide integration with your existing amplifiers. There's a lot of money out there and a lot of amplifiers. You know, if you have to put 10 PA3s on the amplifiers to make 10 amplifiers work, that's good value for money, really. And you've got all the potential of eventually swapping out the amplifiers, or replacing them, or putting them in. Some companies are still putting in new amplifiers because they're looking for the benefits of that. Shopping centres, warehouses. The headquarters can issue a broadcast in different regions if you so wish via dialing in. So they can simply dial into the shop, and if there's something going on, please lock down the shop, this is a thing, please evacuate the shop, blah blah blah. You can have your background music going, you can have, say, health and safety going. Health and safety is really a good opportunity here for you if you just sit down and work through. If you want to talk about it more, just give us a call. You've got one click to call monitoring centre, service centre for emergencies, etc. So naturally, of course, the PA3 is fundamentally also a phone. So the PA3 can be used in various campuses, etc. Time accuracy, because it'll be running off the network clock, means that all the devices that you're running and broadcasting will be accurate to time. Does, of course, the one-touch emergency to a management centre. Now, just think about this for any of you who are looking after a campus. Do you have any? Does the campus have any safe ports? Some call posts, some a safe area where there is a camera pointing down with a intercom phone of some description, so that if they're worried about where they are at night on a campus or something, they can go up, press it, and immediately they're under surveillance, and a call centre knows that they need help and they can talk them through, blah 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 blah. Just another idea that's out there. Train stations, crowd evacuations, belongings, reminders if you lost your belongings, lost and found, that type of thing. Parks, scenario, stadiums, anything like that we can do. And of course, you're just going to be running fibre around, and just even in a changing room or whatever, you can have announcements being played, or etc. on the unit. And of course, they're talking about the monitoring centre again. But health and safety with the timed schedule is good, and the PA service, server is the big thing on this. Okay, so that's it, guys. I tried to keep it as short and simple as I could. Please, if you've got any queries, questions, give us a call. The number's on the screen, 2604019. Email us at sales@everlea.co.nz. It doesn't matter if you haven't sold Fanvil equipment before. Give us a call. Let us have a chat, and let us send you some equipment or a PA3 or whatever, and let's talk and see what we can do with it and see if it suits you in your business. I really don't mind if you're in a small business right through to you're looking after hospitals, etc. We've got solutions for you that may be of interest for you. So thanks very much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll catch up with you next time.